It's good to see you all this morning. I'm Scott Shoemaker. I'm the Thomas G. and Susan C. Hoback Curator of Native American Art, History, and Culture here at the Eiteljorg Museum. And I'd like to welcome you all today in celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day. At Eiteljorg, I invite everybody to visit eiteljorg.org to check out our Indigenous Peoples Day celebration events that we're hosting online. I'm also a Miami person. I'm a citizen of the Miami Tribe, Oklahoma. And as a Miami person whose ancestors and people have lived on these lands since time immemorial, whose ancestors signed the treaties that became the state, ceded the lands that became the state of Indiana, the city of Indianapolis, and the lands upon which this museum was built. And as a resident of the city of Indianapolis, I'd like to thank the city of Indianapolis for acknowledging today as Indigenous Peoples Day. And so as an Indigenous person, I celebrate Indigenous peoples every day. I celebrate our persistence, our resistance, our resilience. I celebrate the diversity and beauty of our languages, our stories, our arts, our cultures. And I ask everybody today to join in that celebration, and for non-Indigenous peoples to join in that and find ways that you can support Indigenous peoples today. So now I'd like to hand it over to Jason Larison, City County Council.
Scott, thank you so much for that. I appreciate the welcome and sharing your thoughts about your people, about this day. I do have to say that this is a little bit of a bittersweet moment because I am pleased to be here proclaiming today as Indigenous Peoples Day for the city of Indianapolis and Marion County. But this is the first time that the city has made this statement. We stand here in a city and state that supposedly is named in honor of the native inhabitants, but it took over 200 years for us to acknowledge the native peoples and declare a day in their honor. So this is not a moment to declare victory. This is just the beginning. This proclamation reminds us that there's work ahead and that there are many things that we must commit to do. A commitment to the honesty about our history and our treatment of the native people that inhabit this land. A commitment to celebrate and elevate the Indigenous people, communities, and cultures and acknowledge their contributions to humankind. And a commitment to wrestle the challenges that Indigenous people face every day. Systematic racism, inequities, poverty, and lack of support with healthcare and education. So proclaiming today Indigenous Peoples Day is about a promise to do these things and more. So with that, please allow me to read this City County Council proclamation. A proclamation declaring October 12, 2020 as Indigenous Peoples Day in the city of Indianapolis. Whereas the city of Indianapolis is named for and located in the state of Indiana, whose name means land of the Indians. And whereas the land now known as Indiana has provided resources, has contained vital trade routes, and has been the home for native peoples, communities, and advanced social complexes for thousands of years. Whereas treaties ceding indigenous territories to the United States, including the 1818 Treaty of St. Mary's, also called for the systematic dispossession and removal of native peoples, including the Miami, Delaware, Shawnee, Potawatomi, Kickapoo, Wea, Wyandot, and Piankashaw nations, creating the opportunity for Euro-American settlement, occupation, and resource extraction, which enabled the formation of the state of Indiana and the city of Indianapolis. And whereas such legal concepts as the doctrine of discovery enabled European powers to seize lands inhabited by Indigenous people under the guise of discovery, were subsequently upheld and reinforced by American judicial decisions in such beliefs as manifest dynasty, which fueled American westward expansion, And whereas many people of indigenous ancestry continue to live in Indianapolis and throughout Indiana, and whereas the city of Indianapolis understands that in order to help close the equity gap, government entities, organizations, and other public institutions should change their policies and practices to better reflect the experiences of Native American people and uplift our country's indigenous roots, history, and contributions. And whereas support for the Declaration of Indigenous Peoples Day has grown since the idea was presented by a delegation of Native nations at the United Nations First International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous populations in the Americas, held in Geneva, Switzerland in 1977. And whereas since then, at least 130 cities, towns, and counties, 10 states, and many and university campuses have officially declared the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day. And whereas the city of Indianapolis has a responsibility to oppose systematic racism toward indigenous peoples of the United States, which perpetuates high rates of poverty and income inequality, exacerbating these communities' disproportionately negative health, education, and social welfare indicators. And whereas the cultures and contributions of the original peoples of the Americas should be recognized, honored, and celebrated, now therefore be it proclaimed by the City and County Council of the City of Indianapolis and of Marion County, Indiana, that October 12, 2020 shall be declared as Indigenous Peoples Day in the City of Indianapolis. Indigenous People Day shall be an opportunity to reflect upon the ongoing struggles of Indigenous people on this land and to celebrate the cultures and values that Indigenous peoples of our region add to the communities in Indianapolis, throughout Indiana, and globally. The City of Indianapolis strongly encourages local schools, universities, businesses, and other organizations to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day. This proclamation was sponsored by Councilors Larison, Barth, Boots, Carlino, Ethan Evans, Hart, Jones, Lewis, Mascari, McCormick, and Potts. Approved and signed by me this 12th day of October 2020, Joseph H. Hogsett, Mayor, Bob Osley, President of the City County Council, and Sarita Hughes, Clerk of the City County Council. Thank you.